Hi everyone, this is Anita with Your Life Tools, and I'm here with my good friend Angela today. I actually met her at the gym. She is a personal trainer and a sales rep for skincare, but what we also really like about her, we call it a street therapist. I met her because she had so many people around her all the time coming to her for advice, insight, and just reflecting. And of course, we gravitated toward each other. And so I was like, please come and be on our show so we can have a discussion.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. And so she thought it would be a good idea to talk about triggers. But I think the bigger thing is a lot of people come to you because they're having trouble in romantic relationships, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
that's the number one, especially for women.
Yeah. And so we often are kind of reflecting, like, what are some things that we see happening often? And it's one thing to get with somebody, but how do you keep the relationship going? So can you tell me a little bit more about that with the triggers?
Well, I think when, like for me, for example, if I feel that I'm getting disrespected by someone, that's when I react. That's my coping mechanism. And I feel like when that happens, because it's an immediate reaction, people are like, whoa, and then they tend to pull away. So I feel like that's a nervous system regulation that's lacking. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. How do we go about doing that? Even though it is needed if somebody's disrespecting you, but how do we go about on reacting in a more peaceful way?
And I wanted to just throw in there before we even started, she looked at me and said, you have triggers, right? I'm like, of course I have triggers.
We all do.
We all have them.
Yeah.
And it's not about trying to necessarily get rid of them, but it's like, how do we become aware of them and manage them a little bit better? And like you said, it's not like you want to get rid of a feeling because it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
But, oh, sorry, my cat's. Miyama is trying to join. She might hop up on the table.
Oh.
But yeah, so how do we work through it so we can make the relationship last? Because any relationship you get into, whether it's friendship again or a romantic one, or even with work, everyone's going to have their things that set them off. So
absolutely, yeah.
The biggest thing is being honest with yourself on what they are, right?
Correct, absolutely, yeah. To be self-aware. And there are times, I believe, that if somebody continues, because especially if it's repetitive, you just got to remove yourself from those people.
So do you want to share with me, like, maybe an example when you notice you were triggered?
Oh.
And you wish you could have taken it back? Maybe like the response from it.
Trying to think of okay, so recently, I went through a breakup with this particular guy, but we got together and I feel like he crossed the line of disrespect. We got together and I kept ruminating about it. I didn't talk to him at the moment, and then I kept ruminating about it because then he goes about it like nothing has ever happened. And that's where I called him and I said I wanted to discuss that. And I just blurted out everything on how I was feeling, the disrespect. And I also said something like, if anybody else would have said that, would have done that to me repetitive, I would have told them, if it would have happened just once, I would have told them that we can't curse, right?
No, go ahead.
I would have told them to f off. I usually don't curse, but when I get to that point, I did. So I wish
that's a real feeling.
It was a real emotion, and that's how I was feeling. And for me, I know because I'm very aware. I was hurt and I was in pain that somebody that I cared about so much and I love so much would treat me that way. That's where that pain came from.
Yeah.
And I felt dismissed, I felt rejected, and at the same time I felt objectified, which is the one area that I don't feel good. Because I feel like I have self-respect, and for him to look at me that way, especially because he knows me, that's why I felt so hurt.
Yeah.
And I told him, I vocalized that. I did say to him, you know me better than that I'm not like that. Why would you do that? And he said, well, I got excited, the testosterone. It's still no excuse because, okay, we get intimate and then you're like, okay, I got to go. That's where I got hurt. It wasn't about the sex that he wanted because that's normal.
Mhm.
You're attracted to someone. It's more the response after the fact that you're like, okay, good, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So
And-
that's where I got triggered. I felt
Well, I
I
think-
felt used.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And the problem with that example is that's probably an appropriate trigger to be that
It
way.
is an appropriate trigger. And
And so
I
I
know
would
that.
say that women out there, if you are feeling used that way, there are times where it's okay to feel uncomfortable, upset, and it's normal and it's human to react that way. What about a time that maybe you know other people who've been triggered in a way that you're like, ooh, maybe there was a better way we could handle it? Because, you know, so many people come to you and they come to you and they're like, I don't know why this isn't working. Why didn't they ask me out again? What do they do?
The way they got triggered.
Or maybe just a habit that they're having that pushes people away they don't notice.
Okay, so there was a situation with this particular young girl, and she, when she feels lonely, she wants to be in a relationship. But then what happens is that they start partying, drinking, and then if like a situation happens that she gets triggered, for example, they went to a party one time, I'm thinking this particular time, and they were both drunk, and there was hardly anybody at the party, and the guy went out and it went to apartment and started bringing other females to the party. So she got triggered.
The same night?
Yes.
Ooh. And they're not like a couple yet.
They
They're
were
just
seeing
kinda-
each other.
Okay.
And so she got triggered, and there was alcohol involved. They were both drunk. So she got so mad that he had the audacity to bring other girls. So then they left and they went back to the apartment. And what she did was they started arguing. And then she kept pushing him, like pushing, get physical with him, which I never think that's appropriate. But she kept doing that. And then, of course, he was drunk. His inhibitions were lowered. And he pushed her back. So she flipped out and she's bad-mouthing him to everybody, including me. And so I listened to the whole thing, and I looked at her. I go, do you think it was okay for you to keep pushing him over and over and over again?
Yeah.
And only because you're a female, it doesn't make it okay. Because I feel like a lot of females say, well, I'm the weaker sex, so I should be doing that. I don't agree with that.
Yeah. So that's a really good example because you're bringing up like they were both triggered, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm curious what triggered him to the point, or maybe gave him the feeling to go do that with the other women.
He just brought him to the party.
Yeah. You think it was more innocent?
It was more innocent, but at the same time, they were having issues, and it's on her end. And I'm saying this because she kept playing with his head. She wanted a relationship, she didn't, and he really did.
Okay.
So he was confused, and I'm sure he was feeling rejected, because I'm trying to put myself in his shoes, and he was feeling rejected. So, and she kept going back and forth whether she wanted to go back with her ex or be with him. And mind you, she's the one that made the move on him first. So I feel like that's the reason why he did that.
But they're both being triggered, right?
Yes.
And so that's a good example of how like when one goes off, then the other, and it just escalates to a point that could be very, in this situation, dangerous and unhealthy. And then there's the blame game. And that doesn't help anybody in the relationship. Even if you guys don't work out, what happens is you're not having a reflection on like what happened, what role you played, so you can prevent it in the future. So for both the benefit of the doubt of them, and if they were like separate clients of mine, I'd probably sit with her and be like, what is it that you were hoping to get out of this meeting up, partying, probably having fun, getting those endorphins going? And then when did it trigger you in turn, and why? Did you experience this other times before? And
she did.
And you might know this person, so do you think this is a trigger? A constant?
Because her ex-boyfriend always would make up and break up, and then he cheated on her. So that was a trigger, him going out and getting other females to bring him to the party. Of course, that's going to be a trigger.
And so now this trigger or this trauma that she's had in past relationships just kind of keeps showing up, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where the lack of being honest and being vulnerable and telling the person you're talking to or dating or in a relationship with is let them know your true weak, and I don't look at them, vulnerability is not a weakness.
Yeah.
Actually, that is the biggest strength, which a lot of people feel weak doing, which
just points that need to grow, right?
Exactly.
So weak isn't even necessarily a bad thing, because if something's weak, again, you're a trainer, you're going to build that area up to get stronger and work on. And a really beautiful relationship is when you guys can both recognize it and grow together.
Absolutely. So. And I think letting the person, this is a big thing for me, letting the person know the things that do trigger you when you are in the relationship. And hopefully they won't do it. Well, at least they'll try, because sometimes it's a habit, but at least make an effort not to do that. It's when it's repetitive, they keep doing it. That I think that's what triggers me the most. It's the repetition. You do it once. It happen. Yes, you do it once. I'm like, okay, you do it twice, and I let you know about it. Then you keep doing it. That shows me that you really don't care. That's
how it feels for you?
It does.
Yeah, I can, but that's another that's your own trigger, huh?
It is.
Because sometimes, not to steer too far away from that, we take it personal. We take it extremely personal. It's like, well, I told you, like you said, I told you multiple times, what is it that you're not getting? Why does it keep happening? And there is some truth in some of it. And sometimes the person thinks they're doing it. And so there's just a whole nother miscommunication. They're like, I thought I showed you I love you by doing X, Y, Z versus the other way, you know? And so that's where a coach can be helpful in relationships. So you can kind of like, they can be reflective and be like, oh, I think what they meant was this, right?
What about in the case of what I said earlier, feeling objectified, and they keep doing it? How would you talk to your client about something like that? If I was your client,
and they were feeling
about you're feeling disrespected and feeling objectified, and
you would. I guess it would be. Would it be the situation you shared about yourself earlier, or about
let's
anybody?
do both. Yeah. Okay. Or anybody that feels that way. Like even my friend called me earlier, and she was saying he used me, and he's now seeing other women, and he still wants to get with me. So she was like upset.
And so if I'm working with someone, it's very important to validate them, because I don't really know the whole picture, and it's a very vulnerable place to start to talk about those things like that. But I'm really big on trying to empower to have control. And so if we give other people control, like this guy does this to me, this guy does this to me, that leaves us kind of like helpless. And so I like to say, like, what things make you feel objectified? Digging deeper why that might make you feel objectified, and how can we prevent it? So kind of talking about preventative, but then also being very patient with yourself that it might happen again, and what need are we actually trying to fill possibly? Because I think that's what happened is us women are looking for connection and so much love and connection and feeling it, and we might feel like giving into sexual things or being treated some way will give us the connection we're wanting, but it doesn't. And so then we feel really, really hurt.
Yes. Because for me, it was more out of love. Because sex for me is very emotional. I've only been with my husband and this particular person my whole life. So that to me, it's like, especially that is so sacred to me. And you knowing that about me, and you cross that line. That's my particular situation. Other people that I've talked to, it's more they do it over and over again. They go from guy to guy to guy and do it. And then they feel objectified. So,
it's confusing. And so it's just, if I'm working with someone, it's just kind of digging deep and reflecting on patterns and trying to break it. But then if it's just a certain circumstance, it's more of like, okay, what was this person doing to make you feel safe enough that you finally allow that to happen? And then you're just feeling kind of taken advantage of, probably, right? I'm thinking of another word. When someone kind of like stabs you behind the back, but there's another, just kind of thinking. I'm drawing a blank. But that's good. Is that how you felt a little bit?
I felt
like I gave trust to you.
I trusted you,
and then
it kept taking it away, and then I trust you again, and you did it again. So, and safety to me is number one, because I'm one of those women that totally shuts down if I don't feel safe, and I think that stems from my childhood, because I never felt safe in the hands of my mom. My dad I did, but not my mom. So
we talked about that before. And that's a really important thing. When me and her talk a lot, we do talk a lot about how our childhood and the relationships with our caregivers affect how we view the world.
Yeah.
And in a very, I don't want to give too much away of your life, but I think even just me personally, if we don't have a secure attachment with, let's say, my dad, then I'm going to seek that out probably in another male, I was going to say role model, but a male partner, to be cared for, not in a weird, creepy dad way, but we're looking for love, acceptance, safety, and security. And I think that happens a lot with male. Well, not. I see male do it a lot too. Where
they do
if they're not having a good relationship with their caregivers, or in particular that motherly love, they're now seeking that out in women.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yes. I see that all the time.
They usually are with the women that don't want them because that's what they're used to. Just like women are used to being rejected because they didn't have that as a father figure growing up.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're comfortable and familiar with. But when they do get that, even if it's just a one-night stand for a couple of months, it feels really great. But they're not comfortable with security. And so they tend to push it away.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I'm not speaking for everybody, but that's what is happening often. Yeah. And there's no shame to it. I want to just add, like, none of this is to be shameful, but if we just cut to the chase and be honest with ourselves and each other, you can start to grow it and then fix it.
That's where I agree with you 100%. I think we need to be honest and authentic with each other. Yeah. And
why do you think people find it so easy to do that with you?
Because because I care. I legit care. And I am very present. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, 100%.
I am very present. And I'll give you my heart at the moment. Even if I just met you. And I think that stems because I'm very deep. And even if I don't know you, that I just meet you, I want to get to know you. I want to see into you. Because I think all humans are amazing and beautiful. And the way I look at humans, they need to be cherished. So that's why I feel it very offensive when people look at objectified people, because we shouldn't be objectified.
Why do you think you have learned the importance of that?
Well, it stems from, I feel, my paternal grandmother.
Okay.
She was so selfless. She just poured love into everybody that touched her life. And I lived with her for 3 years because my dad took...
So you saw her do that?
Yes. And I'm very much like her. And people used to say that to me. Oh, she's just like her grandmother, Angela, by the way. Her name was Angela. And I look like her as well.
Yeah.
Like I was her mini her.
Look
and
at you
my
light
personality.
up when you talk about her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was my mom. Oh, yeah. She's the most beautiful person. She was so selfless.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what age range was this?
Oh, that I lived with her between 6.5 and 9.5 before I came to the United States. Yeah.
And then how was her relationship with your grandfather?
She took care of him because my grandfather was an alcoholic. So she took care of him. And back in the day, she thought, well, I'm his wife. And she loved him. But she was the breadwinner and she took care of 4 kids. And then the grandkids, she took care of the grandkids. But she had so much love no matter what. I never saw her angry. I did see her sad though. And I didn't understand. I did understand it at the time, but I would see her cry overnight. And she would work night and day just to keep the family going. Yeah.
And you remember
Very
that?
sacrificial. Oh, yeah. I remember. Anita, I remember things since I was 2 years old. I remember things with my mom, my dad, my relationship with them at that age, with my brother. Yeah, when he was born, I remember everything.
What do you think? Because you've said I was like, why do you think people are drawn and trust you? And then you shared how you cherish people, and that comes from your grandma.
Yeah.
And so what do you think now, talking about her relationship and her pouring into people so much, what do you think that's helped you with or might have not helped you?
Well, it helped me with seeing people, that the humanity of people and even their brokenness, because she did see that in people, but she still helped. And I think love is what makes the world go forward. But I also saw that she accepted things that she never should have tolerated. And I did that with a lot of people, even friendships. I mean, I have friendships that should have been done years ago, and they lasted for 40. I had a particular friendship that I met her when I was 12, and it lasted 47 years, which it should have been done when I was in my late 20s. But I am one of those, Anita, that I always see light at the end of the tunnel, and I always have hope. I always say, where there's life, there's hope. But sometimes that's not a very good thing, because then you end up hurting yourself over and over and over and over again. And I did that with this particular friend till the point, as of last year, I don't want anything to do with her. I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to see her. I'm working on that. She hasn't reached out in like a couple months, I would see her name, I would cringe. Because I'm one of those, when I love with everything, and my love is so deep and intense, but I could go the other way, which I work on not going there, because I think my relationship with God, because my faith is everything to me. So I go, Angela, no, but it is hard, but I do feel my emotions, and I'm like, okay, this emotion that I'm feeling, anger, even like disgust, I feel them. It's natural. But I don't want to stay there.
And I think that's a really good point, because when we were talking about the other woman and the issues that she was having with being triggered, is that it's really hard when you are hurt so many times. I think you mentioned she was like cheated on or something.
Yes.
And it kind of can change you. And so it's hard, because it's a really fine line of balance of, how can I change to be healthy and recognize things, but not change so much that I'm cold and I don't accept love anymore?
That's so funny you brought that up. I've been thinking about that lately. And I know I will never go the cold route, because I could separate.
But because not everybody can think about it like that. So you have the ability to do that. So what do you think is a good reminder? Like, okay, I'm not going to let this that hurt me actually change the way that I'm going to love somebody in the future.
Because I know everybody's an individual. We're all different. And even if you are that same person that I meet, I'm still going to give you that chance, and then find out that you're not. But now, what I used to do in the past, which I changed, I will give chance after chance. 47 years, that's a long time I've given. Now it's like, okay, first time, it's a mistake. Second time, I'll give you 3. That means that's who you are.
Okay. Yeah. And so
I think that's healthy.
You're able to recognize like your boundaries.
Yes.
Your limits.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's really important, kind of sitting and reflecting, and then also trying to figure out who you are and staying true to yourself. And I think it's a really beautiful thing that even though you've been hurt by romance, family, friendships, that there's a reason why people still come up to you in the gym and or so drawn to you. Because you are holding true to that still.
Yeah. And I'm also trying to get to the point where, I'm trying to accept people for where they're at.
Oh, I like that.
You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that I have to expose myself to their, and how do I put it? To their toxic behavior. Like I had a situation I've been friends with this particular guy for almost 10 years. And
it's a long time.
It's a long time. And he's very toxic. And I gave him so many chances. But now I got to the point.
And let me clarify, chances is just friends, right?
Friends. Yeah, no. I never see him any more than that.
But did he have that with you?
No, he's been interested, but it doesn't matter. I'm very good at friend zoning people first day. I'm so good at that. But now I'm at that point. Yeah, we could be friendly. I'll be cordial, but I'm going to accept you for where you're at, but I'm not going to carry that anymore.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot.
Yes.
Because I love seeing how you make people smile and they come to you. But I also, from my own experience and then observing from the outside, it can drain you a lot.
I have been drained.
And it's so important to protect yourself from everyone's vulnerabilities. It's not our job to fix it and take care of it all.
Absolutely.
It's like what do they call it? Like a blessing and a curse.
It's a blessing and a curse, yeah. But yeah, one thing about me though, I am true to myself because I am very direct and honest. If they do ask for my opinion, that I've never deviated from, because then I don't like myself if I'm not honest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I even told the guy that I had that situation with, I said, because he was, and I go, and he goes, I go, yeah, I'm too honest. I don't know if there is such a thing as being too honest though. I'd rather that.
There's honesty and then the way that we deliver the honesty.
Exactly. And my delivery, I admit this, could be very direct and kind of scary for people, but I don't mean to be that way. Yeah. So it's my delivery that I need to work on. And my tone.
We always have things.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's my lack of delivery for me.
Yeah, mine it's the delivery and the tone.
Yeah.
Like if I get triggered, then my tone, it's like goes up.
That also makes me think about, it's just important to know that I think some people feel like when you get coaching or therapy or in a relationship that things will just end when you reach a milestone, and it doesn't. Not even if you're just a single person alone, you should always be evolving and learning and growing, because if you're not, then change isn't really happening. You're just kind of waking up and doing the same thing all the time.
But that is the beauty of life.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what, so when you're like, oh, I need to work, as soon as you accomplish that, you're going to reflect on something else to change.
But that is beautiful. I think it's beautiful. And that is life. I think that's going to happen till the day we die. That we should evolve.
Yeah.
I feel kind of sorry for people that are just stuck in that one place. Because I know people that are like in their 70s and they're just act like they're like 15.
Well, they feel that would also could be just the fear of change too, right?
Yeah.
Thinking that if they think they can ignore some things, that they can just be stuck in a mindset they feel like is helping them, but it's not. It's restricting them.
Restricting them. Do you think that people eventually wake up, or do some people just die and they never do?
I do feel like people just die and never do. 100%.
I've seen that. And that's a sad part.
It is sad, and I can try to be optimistic, but it's not real. You see some not very good people, and then you see some people that just didn't get it. And then, but then you'll start to get into like what you believe religious or spiritually, and rebirth or heaven or what that could mean. That's a whole nother podcast.
I would love that. Yeah.
Okay,
There's so many podcasts.
There's so many things to talk about all the time. I'm sure we'll do this again. But thank you for joining me and coming and your vulnerability.
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
And thanks for joining.